Welcome to this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and before we get started, if you want to know exactly how to win again and again, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now to watch something I've put together for you. Now let's get going into this episode of Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm here with Frances Avrett, and Frances is sharing with us her principles that she used to build an organization in a whole different kind of business than she was in Georgia, in the farming business and the greenhouse business, and take that business all over North America. And she was talking about the fact that people need a track to run on, and she developed her 12 rules that she was going to live by, and this gave her a track for her winning strategy. So Frances, thanks for being here, and talk a little bit more of that. The first one you talked about treat people right. The other thing is I will not waste time, and kind of give us a few more of those.
Yeah, well, one or two of the others that I really worked hard with was to have a business plan from the standpoint of my time, and so that I could follow through with what I had promised myself. And that would be to, I strategically looked at the market. I was in a little town. Sandersville had about 10,000 people. It was the nearest city, was 65 miles away. So I had to learn. So I had part of my strategy was part of my rules for winning was to develop leadership outside of my area by learning how to work with people that I didn't know. So I had to learn how to make friends and how to enter markets that I could have people trust me very quickly. And the only way, and the rule that I was living by was always tell it like it is. Give them the good part and let them know if they have questions, if there's a negative. And the biggest negative, Larry, in my business was that we work with people and people sometimes disappoint you. But one of my rules was when somebody disappoints me, that doesn't mean that my game plan changes. It means that they've made a different choice. So those were the kind of things that were in that list. It was developing people to become independent and not lose my vision and my faith because somebody else didn't make it work, or somebody else couldn't get it off the ground, or they made a different decision. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've watched over the years is people get discouraged because somebody else didn't buy into what they were talking about, what their vision was. And just because somebody else doesn't buy it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not for them and you need to move on. I kind of got into a little bit of the weeds there with that, but that's such an important thing for people that are building big businesses to know that just because somebody else doesn't like what you're doing doesn't mean what you're doing is not right and good and should be yours.
Yeah, there are weeds in business, aren't there?
There are really a lot of them, a lot of weeds. You got to know how to get through them.
And did you have to learn this as you went through that thing? Did you have some tough experiences of that?
Oh, I definitely had some tough experiences, but I think the fact that I was so focused on the few principles that I knew if I stayed focused on would work, I didn't have as tough a time. My business grew very rapidly, and I was able to set a goal for how much money it was going to take to survive, to go to work every day and make sure the family was taken care of. And I hit those goals quickly. And it didn't matter. I mean, people were talking to me about, you can earn this much money. I said, look, right this minute, I need to have $50,000. And then when I hit that, then I'm going to the next level. And of course I did that quickly, but I didn't try to jump into the buying into the glamour of it too quick. I bought into the significance of of what we do, and that it could provide that kind of income. And I knew it was going to take me a while. I'd been in farming all my life. So, but quickly, because I guess I'm trying to say it takes a focus on where you are the next 3 months, the next year, the next 2 years. And in doing that, my business just, other people did the same thing, and it really grew.
What do you do to keep that heart focus, and what did you do as you were in that stage? Because I don't think anybody with 15 grandkids can have any kind of focus.
Well,
like Art, I think Art has 135 grandkids and great grandkids now.
Yeah, he has more than I do. Yeah.
I remember when he got up to 6 grandkids, he told his kids, no more kids. We got enough. And now he's up, they got a zillion of them. So,
Well, Larry, I was going wide. I had 5 children, and then it started, we started getting a little depth there. Some of them got married and had kids. Now I'm into the multiples. We're into the great grandchildren. And, who knows where that's going to go, but I know this, they have to go through life and go through their ups and downs. And, life's not going to be easy for them just because I've made it. But the good news is, because I went through those things, they have an example that you can get through what life throws at you.
hey, listen, there's a lot of information online, but there aren't a lot of people who've actually done something. In my case, I've actually built a successful business that's accrued over $5 billion in assets under management and has done well even during trying times. Now, if you want to know exactly how I've done this, go to whiteelmwinning.com/webinar now. I've compressed a decade of learning into 5 short weeks just for those of you who want to give yourself an incredible advantage and are tired of waiting and watching others move up. And talk about now, when you speak around the country and people talk to you, are you spending time with them? Are you having these small group settings where they talk and everything? Do you? When you did that, what would people want to know? You said people are the same everywhere, and you've been all over Canada, the United States, and different people with immigrant backgrounds, people with minority backgrounds, old, young, whatever, male, female. What when you say people are the same, talk about how you've learned to relate to people, and what are the kind of questions that people seem to have.
Yeah, people say, the main thing people ask me, of course, they want to know, how can you as a mother with children continue to build a business and have, be able to do that without giving up on your children? They think somehow you can't do both. And I guess in the farming business, you learn that very quickly. A family can be a family and people can be successful and all be a part of it. But that was the main thing people wanted to know from me. But then the second thing, after I started really growing, they wanted, how did you get to so many places so quick? How could you be in a little town and then all of a sudden you got a business 3 years later in all over the United States and in another country? And I tell them, most people, and we would have long conversations about this, and I can tell you that most people are not willing to look outside what is extremely familiar to them. And I had the ability to go outside in my mind. If I stay in this little town, then I'm going to have a small business. If I can see myself in other cities and in other countries or other states, then I will be able to succeed in a bigger way. And once I go there, the men and women I'll talk to are like me. They have their issues going on in their families. They want to raise their children. I think the first thing that I learned was, and Art Williams taught me this quickly, what people want to know is that you care enough to find out what they want and ask them what their dreams are. Get people to dream again. I had to be a dreamer. I had to look at what was impossible. And so I could start asking the questions and say, you know what? Tell me what you would have if money was not an object. Where would you be? What will life look like in the next 5 years? And when people lighten up and start talking about that, it causes them to want to hear how to do it.
Well, Frances, what was your expect? Now, how did you say that most people are not willing and are not able to see things beyond where they are right now? Is that how you said it?
That's exactly right. They have a hard time seeing that a business can be outside of their geographic location or outside of their culture. As a matter of fact, I was working with somebody this morning, and they were talking about how they had recruited somebody from a different ethnic group, and they had very different cultures. And they said, how am I going to be successful with that? I said, you're going to have to forget your culture and start learning their culture. If you go about this thinking that they are going to do things your way, you will not go into that market. And I learned that because I came from a very fundamental, basic culture of growing up in the farming regions of Georgia. And, not a lot of, I didn't travel extensively. I didn't know a lot of people from different places, but right away, I had to know, I've got to forget what's familiar to me and think about what is familiar to them. And because people are going to be stuck in what they're accustomed to, the hardest thing is to get a man or a woman to look outside of what is very familiar to them.
We had this brief fling where we were going to expand internationally.
Yeah.
We did this thing. Well, let's go check out Japan. So I said, well, I'll go. And so we went for 4 days. And the funny thing with the big topic of conversation was, how are we going to, we don't understand the Japanese. How are we going to find, get to where we understand the Japanese? And I heard understand the Japanese so many times in a couple of days. I got sick and I said, can we stop talking about that? Because I said, I've got 2 boys and I've lived with them ever since they've been on the earth, and I don't understand them. I said, I've got my 3 key people, my close people, Andy Young, John Lennon. I have no clue how they think either, so.
I sure don't think about Japanese.
Yeah. So let's just forget about understanding how the Japanese think. Let's show them what we do and see if somebody gets excited about it, and they'll figure.
You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right.
It's like, if I got to wait till I understand how somebody thinks, I'm going to be waiting a long time, because they can figure it out for themselves. And when they figure things out for themselves, they grow and it becomes their thing, because they've worked those things out. And so many people hold themselves back because they're dictators. They don't want to build independent leaders. They're more excited about their system. They're so excited they came up with a system and a game plan that it's almost like wanting to keep their people. Those kind of things are good when you have kindergarten kids. Everybody hold your hand. We're going to go to lunch, and you got to keep up with them. But they don't want to be holding their hand when they're high school seniors to go to lunch.
Yes. That's right. I think you're right. That's where I see so many people make the mistake. We have an IBA. It's an independent business application. People don't join us for you to be their boss. They're trying to leave a boss. And the worst thing, my system was so simple. It was only 6 or 8 points that people needed to learn. And anything they did, as long as that was their foundation, they could do a lot of different things. They could be creative. But, you use your creativity after you've made the basics work. From then on, it's, I've got a lot of very exciting people that are smart and, run great big, come up with great ideas, but their foundation is on those principles. And I think that's the main thing, is giving them something that works and not demanding anything.
And the simpler you can keep the basics, the quicker they can learn it.
Absolutely. I didn't want them to be, people would say, well, here's my 10 steps. I said, I've got 6. And they're so simple. If you just memorize the names of those 6 pieces and learn the little basics, everything else works around.
This has been fantastic. If you enjoyed what you've heard and are dead serious about finding out for yourself exactly how this works in the real world, I've taken the most valuable business lessons I've learned over 40 years and put them into something for you to watch. Go to whiteelementwinning.com/webinar now in order to move up as fast as possible. I'm Larry Weidel, and I run the $1 Million Mastermind. Go, go, go.